order, so it's the same tafsir of Surah Al Imran. And we are now, I'm going to begin from where we left off, Surah Al Imran, ayah number 19. We can start from there. Okay? Inshallah. For those of you who want to read along, so to speak. الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الدين عند الله الإسلام وما اختلف الذين أوتوا الكتاب إلا من بعد ما جاءهم العلم بغيا بينهم ومن يكفر بآيات الله فإن الله سريع الحساب فإن حاجوك فقل أسلمت وجهي لله ومن اتبعان وقل للذين أوتوا الكتاب والأميين أسلمتم فإن أسلموا فقد اهتدوا وإن تولوا فإنما عليك البلاغ والله بصير بالعباد. 19, surah number, or excuse me, the ayah number 19. Okay, we already talked about this, but if you are paying attention, then inshallah ta'ala we will be able to discern how all of these things actually are related. All the subject matters rather that are spoken about in these ayat are related. And oftentimes, there's a lot of people, maybe including ourselves, even non-Muslims I've spoken to that have read translations of the Quran, sometimes they find it hard to understand the relationship of the ayat and the surah and the chapters in regards to their subject matter. It seems oftentimes to some people that it's kind of sporadic and that it changes subjects abruptly and nothing is really related. Right? Is that true or not?
Yes.
Huh. So, inshallah, I will prove that when we, honestly, it's actually even exciting. It's almost childlike, the excitement you get when, I don't know, maybe I'm a nerd or something, but when you read and you discover things and new ideas pop up, you're like, wow, this is amazing. Actually, when I was reading all of the traditional tafsir and exegesis of these ayat, you realize that no, that's not the case. Every single ayah is related to the one after it. It may seem that way because, unfortunately, we're short-sighted. And the people who came before us, the ones who gave us this legacy of knowledge, were people of tafakkur and tadabbur, meaning they were very reflective and deep-thinking people, and they understood, of course, the language, and they understood their deen and many other things, but also their brains worked in a different way. So they were able to hit the target on spot, as they say, asaba, literally in Arabic. When you solve a problem, they say asabta, meaning you hit the target, got your goal. And they understood very clearly the relationship between these ayat, even though seemingly when we read it at a cursory glance, there's no relationship, right? You just admitted it. And I too, at one point too, was the same way. I would read it and say, well, how is this related to that? There doesn't seem to be any relationship. And as I said, even non-Muslims I've spoken to before who read the Quran and, obviously an English translation made the same complaint that it's very hard for me to see the relationship between the subject matter. It seems like things are just all over the place. As compared to the Bible is written chronologically. Even the Old Testament is written chronologically, meaning from the story of Adam alayhi salam to the saga of Bani Israel. So it makes for easier reading. That's because this is for reflective people. Right? Tilka al-ayatu. Right? These are the verses and signs that we reveal unto people who will do what? Think. So when you're able to sit, think, and ponder over these ayat, then you will discover that they are very deeply related, even in the chronological order, and then you can even appreciate things like, for instance, the actual nazm, or the actual, how should I translate that? Tanzim, even in Urdu?
Order?
Exactly. So let's just use that simple word. Simple is good. The order of the Quran, from Fatiha to Surah An-Nas, is not without reason as well. And we should accept that. Okay, the order of the Quran too is very much so a purposeful and meaningful order that was done in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and it was also carried on by the Sahaba, and that also has a very As I said, it's meaningful and purposeful. It has its purpose. We'll get into that another time. There's some people have criticized that, even amongst the Muslims, that how did the order of the Quran come about? You've heard this before? All right.
And wondered.
All right. How did the order of the Quran come about? How did these surahs, how did this happen when the Quran, as we know, is not revealed in order per se? Right? Ala mukthin, piece by piece. Sometimes ayat were revealed with a great gap between in time, yet they're in the same surah. So some people look at that and they try to make an objection. So what does that mean? Where did this order come from? Long story short, because there are whole books written about this where you have to go back to history and look at the entire seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and also the Sahaba and the compilation of the Quran, starting from the Khilafah of Abu Bakr anhu. Started there. Uthman anhu he made one mushaf, meaning this is the riwayah of Hafs, and make it easier for people. But this was not in any way the endeavor, or the beginning of the endeavor of the compilation of the Quran and the way that we recite it and we have received it today. It began from the very beginning. One could even argue, of course, it began before Rasulullah and passed from this world. That's why Ibn Abbas anhuma said that in Ramadan, this is actually something that people from the fiqh perspective also, a sunnah in Ramadan. And when we say sunnah here, we mean a tradition that is established in our sharia. Okay, and it's a much broader definition than just saying it's something that the Prophet did something and that is a sunnah. Did we talk about that before?
Once you mentioned.
Yes, okay. So when I say sunnah here, I mean what? A tradition that is established in our sharia. What is that tradition? That to listen to an entire recitation of the Quran in Ramadan is also a sunnah. It's part of Salat al-Tarawih, but it's also considered a separate sunnah because technically you could pray Salat al-Tarawih without reciting the whole Quran. So let's say you don't go to the masjid during Ramadan and you live in a village somewhere, or a town. I mean, village is the wrong word to use here, but you live in a small town, nobody's there. So you recite Tarawih by yourself and you don't know the whole Quran, so you just repeat whatever you know. So you fulfilled one sunnah, which is Salat al-Tarawih. But there's another sunnah combined with that, which is to listen, and I'm using that word very, 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 I'm being very specific here. To listen to an entire recitation of the Quran. That's because, of course, the first means of preservation of the Quran was not through the written word or through recording it. Although, yes, the Sahaba did at times use parchments and things like that to write down the Quran. But in general, the entire of the Quran was not written in the beginning, correct? So how was it memorized? Orally. It's the oral tradition. Even hadith. It is a well-known principle of the scholars of hadith that, believe it or not, what is called mushafaha, which means that something that you heard, it was orally transmitted. Mushafaha literally comes from the lips, so it's orally transmitted, is always a stronger means of transmission than from a book. Meaning, if your teacher, when you were listening to hadith, was reading this hadith from a book, that's considered acceptable, but a lesser form of transmission. A higher form of transmission is if that person can regurgitate and say whatever it is they have to say from memory. That was always considered a stronger and even, okay, I dare say, and not dare say, this is a fact for this ummah, and we can get into why, but that oral transmission would consider a sounder means of transmission than the written word. That it was more reliable than the written word. Okay? What a person can say from memory without having to look into a book or be reminded, meaning it's literally it's just something that they regurgitate. That's why I use that word. They just say it, right, from the top of their head. It's considered to be more reliable than the written word.
No, it's just the opposite.
It's the opposite. We rely more on the written word, and even it's ajib because we're living in a time where literacy in terms of, according to statistics and however much faith you want to put in that, but in the world, generally speaking, there are more literate people than there has ever been in history. You see? according to statistics, there's more literate. Yes, there's still high rates of illiteracy, but we're talking about in the past, compared to even 200 years ago. Literacy is more widespread now than it ever has been in human history, which is, don't get me started. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is very interesting. And one of the signs of the last days is that he said that literally that the washil qalam, which means that the pen will be spread far and wide. The pen will be everywhere. Now what would that be indicative of? Meaning the written word, okay, would be everywhere. And people rely more on the written word than they will of anything, as you said, to the oral tradition or what they hear. They're more concerned about what they read, which is a sign of the last days. At the same time, the Prophet ﷺ said that knowledge will be lifted in those times. Knowledge will be lifted. So it's a saying, we're seeing that right now. People are more literate, but they're not more the better for it. In fact, and many times they're literate, but they're not so intelligent. And there's a reason for that. Because through sama' and through hearing and through listening, it has a direct relation to the qalb and the heart. And the heart is, technically speaking, right, we can go into, that's a whole other issue, is actually where the intellect presides. So it filters out the information that it hears. Or when you read, right, when you read, it's something that, you're busying yourself in the words and in the paragraph and the sentence structure and the grammar. And so your mind is to a certain extent occupied in something else. That's why if you really want to understand a subject, you can't just read it once or twice. Correct? But you have to go back again and reread it and think about it again and again. Where if you hear something, what do you usually do? From the moment you hear it, what happens? You make an immediate assumption or judgment. Is that true or not? From the moment you hear an idea, what do you usually do? You make an immediate assumption or judgment about what you've heard. Anyhow, but that's important because all of the revelation, all of these things, listen closely, pay attention. That's why my opinion, like even in terms of education, all this PowerPoint presentation and all this other garbage, forgive me for saying it, but that's what I think it is. There's nothing replaces good listening skills.
So isn't also music relates into that?
Of course. That's why music is considered another subject in Sharia. It's not music per se. It's not the fact that it's music. It's because music is one of the most profound things that human beings have produced. If you want to say even it's eternal. That's why there's pieces of music that were written literally hundreds of years ago that people today still will say, what, wow, right? Ingenious. And it affects the heart more than anything else. And lyrics that you hear, even if you've never read the lyric sheet, but you will know that this goes back to Samat. You will know those lyrics just so it's just like, if I sung a popular tune in front of you and I got the lyric wrong, what would everyone in the room do? Correct. That's not the song. The song goes like this. So there's a connection. Even in terms of when we are created, the first thing that Allah says that He created for us is the sama'. So when you're being formed in the womb of your mother, what's the first sense perception that you have? This is the most profound gift that we have from Allah. And that's why you have scholars who are blind. You have scholars who have memorized whole books of hadith that are what? Blind. Because you don't have to see it. But what's essential for a human being is the ability to hear it.
Why was the first word then ikra and not listen?
It's a very good point. Because ikra technically doesn't mean read. Qira'ah is what? Recitation. You understand? It can mean to read, but actually, okay, this is another subject, inshallah, we should actually go into. Qara'a literally means jam'a, it means to gather. The literal meaning of qara'a means to gather something. That's why it's used for read or, because it means what? You take subjects and sentences, same thing. You put it all together, and when you read it, you're putting all this information together as well. Okay? So qira'ah, technically though, another meaning for it is to do what? Recite. That's why the one who recites Quran is called what? Qari. So again, another misconception that a lot of people will say that this ayah proves that, again, we should promote literacy amongst the ummah, which is fine. We should promote literacy amongst the ummah because ever since the time the Prophet ﷺ was given this revelation, he promoted literacy amongst his companions. They promoted literacy amongst their followers, and the whole ummah, the Muslim ummah, was always known. Actually, if you want to compare, right, we're talking about in general. When I said literacy is more widespread, especially in the Western world. But as far as the Muslims were concerned, having a library and the written word was always a part of their culture all the way up until the present day. So people who weren't even scholars, a person who had no business with scholarship would have a library in Baghdad, for instance, that's written in history books. Like it's just a simple businessman who really wasn't much of a scholar, but they would buy certain books and certain authors because that was considered to be that was in vogue. That was if you went to their house and there was no books on the shelf, right? Who's this person? What kind of? So no doubt literacy was promoted and encouraged, but not this ayah doesn't prove that. Right? There's other things where the Prophet ﷺ actually encouraged the Sahaba to learn how to read and write and to also write down things, and he wrote down. This is also proof for hadith being recorded at the time, that, for instance, of the Prophet ﷺ, zakat. And the rules of zakat he ordered to be written down, and that's one of the things Ali radiallahu anhu had as far as what he had, as a book, if you will, was the laws and commandments regarding zakat. So that's no doubt. Literacy was promoted and it was in vogue from the very beginning, but that ayah doesn't prove it. Because iqra here technically means to recite. Doesn't mean to read. So there you go. Okay? So, but it is the truth that although writing and literacy was promoted, the oral tradition was always considered superior. That listening to and reciting from memory was always considered a superior methodology, right? And more reliable also. Some of my teachers have even said this is this is the reason why when Allah speaks about the nations before us, He called them untum kitab, the people of the book. They were literate nations and they prided themselves on having scriptures, yet their scriptures were tampered with, and their scriptures were not whole, and their scriptures did not guide them. Because here's the thing, even if you look at it, what can you do to the written word?
Change.
Yep. And who's going to, if the editor or whoever, if the person writing the book makes whatever additions that they want or whatever they want to do to it, it's literally called yuharrifuna, as the tahrif, change whatever you want. Can anyone stop them at that point in time? No. Whereas, look at what I just said. It's very simple. We all know a song or the lyrics to the song. If I try to change it, what will happen? Everyone will be corrected. Or will correct you, rather. Sorry. No, that's not right. That's not how the song goes. This is a very important subject. That wasn't actually my intent at all today to get into, but nonetheless, inshallah, maybe one day we'll touch on that as well. Okay, but the literal tradition was always considered to be a superior way of transmission and more reliable than writing and the written word.
But also, isn't it that the pen was the first thing to be created by Allah?
Sure, right.
So then that's
Absolutely. So the pen is to write what has already been, if you really want to get metaphysical, the pen is there to write what was already said with qawl. إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُن. When Allah wants something to happen, He says to it, be, and it is. And then He ordered the qalam to write it down. So the qalam is secondary. What's written is secondary. What first comes, and this is not just me saying this, is many of the shuyukh who, I don't want to give any names, but very deep shuyukh who are considered very metaphysical have also mentioned this. The kalimat, or the word, if you will, even in Christian tradition, the word, logos, right? The word comes before what is written. After all, what do you write?
Your thoughts.
Right. So what comes first? The words. Then the writing. The writing is just there to capture the words. So qawl, or if you go speech, precedes. It's very interesting to note, if you want to take it on a metaphysical level again, one of the necessary attributes of Allah is that He has kalam. وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا. He has speech. But where do you find any ayah or hadith or any scholar in the history of Islam that said a necessary attribute of Allah is that He writes? That He's the author, He's the katib.
Raymond, what about...
Did you get my point?
So
Then
everything is written in the Lawh Mahfuz, right?
that's the qalam, right? That was obviously Allah's knowledge and Allah's kun fayakun, His command that things will exist, right? That preceded the qalam and the Lawh Mahfuz, whatever was written there. Right? That's why, subhanAllah, Imam al-Tabari, rahimahullah ta'ala, and others have related that some of the du'as that were that were recited by some companions, notably like Umar and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, radiyallahu anhuma, used to say things like this: Allahumma in kunta katabtani shaqiyan famhuni waktubni sa'ida, wa in kunta katabtani sa'ida fa'athbitni fa'innaka tam'u ma tasha wa tuthbit, which translates roughly that, oh Allah, if you have written me, if you have written that I'm amongst those who are wretched, shaqiyan, unfortunate, right, who have a bad future, famhuni waktubni sa'ida, then erase my name and write me amongst those who are felicitous and successful. This goes back to another deep issue, that whatever is written in Lawh al-Mahfuz is one thing, but can Allah change it if He so wishes?
With du'as.
Right, so this is what they're using the ayah of the Quran. يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ. Allah will erase whatever He wants, and He will establish whatever He wants. So, their brains are in a different, like I said, they have a different type of thought pattern than we do. So they made this dua that even if I'm written amongst the wretched, erase my name. And let me be written amongst those who are felicitous, because you do what you like, you erase whatever you want, you establish whatever you want. If it is your will and your knowledge that will happen, then let it be. So, okay, we got a little too sidetracked, mashallah, but nonetheless it was a good discussion.
Just real quick, Imam, there's no argument among Shaykh that the current order of the Quran is divine, right? That's...
Well, there were some unfortunate people in the history of Islam that actually tried to argue that. This is why there were some fortunate people amongst the Muslims who tried to claim that the Quran itself that we have is not preserved. I'll give you a hint, it's with their hidden imam somewhere in a cave. Alright, because this is their argument, that the order is not sound. Why? Because simply put, who put this order there? Where did this tradition come from? If you don't accept the Sahaba, then it's fair game. You don't accept any of this. The compilation of the Quran, the order of the Quran. And this is why I went into the history of it, and that's how the whole discussion got into everything else, is that listening to the Quran was a sunnah, as a tradition. Why? Because this is what the Prophet saw, according to Ibn Abbas, at the end of his life, this is what he did with the Sahaba, which was what? Recite and hear, or listen to the Quran from in front of, he would actually recite the Quran in front of Jibreel alayhi salam. Okay? And Jibreel alayhi salam then would do what? Put everything into order, in other words. And then the Prophet ﷺ would do the same thing for the Sahaba. And then the Sahaba did the same thing amongst themselves. Okay? Now when that happened, they did it at first individually, and then Umar al-Anhu brought them together and prayed behind one imam. This is where we get Salat al-Tarawih. So part of Salat al-Tarawih, the purpose of it all was to revise the Quran that was taught to the Sahaba by the Prophet ﷺ. Does it make sense? But if you don't accept Umar or Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhuma or any of the Sahaba, then how will that work?
But then how do they argue where the Quran says we're preserving or protecting? How do they argue that?
that the real Quran, like I said, is with Ahlul Bayt, specifically Imam Mahdi, or their version of Imam Mahdi. And that the reality of it will come out when he appears. Until then, we have a muharraf, according to them, a changed Quran that cannot be relied upon, except by their imams, meaning their imams it's kind of like a pope type of thing. The pope can explain the Bible, right? Their imams can explain what the Quran really means, if it is in fact truly the Quran according to them.
So how should a Muslim
deal with it? Or
I mean, isn't that out of the Aqidah? I mean,
it is, no doubt. Here's the problem. Remember I was talking about this in Jummah? The Sunni tradition has always been so generous. I'm not trying to say that there aren't times when we have taken action against certain people. That's happened. But for the most part, we've kind of left people alone, even when we know they're wrong.
as long as they say la ilaha.
As long as they say so. That's the thing. Until and when they say it. Like, see, the problem, again, that they have taqiyya, right? So if you corner someone, especially if someone most of these Shiites are just people who grow up as a Shia. They don't really know much, even about their own religion. And you'll see, I shouldn't say religion, but their own, you will, beliefs. If you actually talk to them in detail, you'll find out that, very few of them are really that conversant themselves of what they believe. Right? But if you go to their scholars, what's the issue? If you ask this question, like this is what happened in the modern times, because this is a well-known thing amongst the Sunni Muslims. So the Ayatollah was asked about it. He said, no, we no longer say that. Now, he could be lying, because he's allowed to. So in front of you, he'll say that, no, we believe the Quran has been preserved. We're like everybody else. But then perhaps if you get it behind closed doors, he'll say, no, we just said that to make them happy, but we know the real Quran is with, our Imam Mahdi and so forth. You can't really, so we have to take them on what? Their outward word. If they say, we can't do anything more than say, okay, mashallah, what can you do? You see what I'm saying? We have to take everyone on their outward. We can't, if they say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, like you say, and then if you ask them about these specific things, and they say, no, that's not true, then you just have to take them for their word and go on with it. Whereas traditionally in their books, these things are there, right? If you have access to those. They're scholarly works in specific, okay? Those things are there. But again, when you come to individual Muslims or anyone, you have to take them on their word.
Does that translate into any of their, this is off the topic, I'm sorry, into any of their, salat?
Not really. Well, that is a good question. I shouldn't say anything without really knowing before I research that and see, what do they recite then?
Yeah.
Because I know they accept certain, if there's, in their mind, if there's certain riwayat or certain transmissions that are from people they accept from amongst the Sahaba, which are very few, or the Ahlul Bayt, then they would obviously use that. And I'm assuming they use that in terms of Quran as well. But that's an assumption.
Not just the order, also the content that they question?
Yeah. And again, this is actually coming up. The important point in all these ayat too is, it's a very deep one, I hope I'll be able to bring it out from these ayat, is that questioning the followers of a prophet is the same thing as rejecting the prophet himself. This is mentioned if you pay attention, for instance, in these ayat, what does Allah say? Okay, let's skip 19, we already did that. So take the next one. فَإِنْ حَاجُوكَ فَقُلْ أَسْلَمْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّهِ وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِ. So if they argue with you, now of course this is in reference to the Ahlul Kitab, okay, that if they argue with you, argue that you are a prophet or argue anything about your message, then say to them simply, I have submitted myself. Wajhiya literally means my face, okay? The literal meaning of wajhiya is my face, but it means here in this context, I have submitted myself, my whole being. I have submitted myself to Allah, and then what? وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي, and those people who follow me. So can anyone put two and two together? Is there any need for Allah, the creator of all things that exist, to mention the followers of the Prophet alongside with him? Would he just do that just because? وَمَا هُوَ بِالْهَزْلِ. There's nothing in the Quran that happens just because. So it's very important to note that what did Allah mention here? Allah said, to the Prophet, meaning say to them, I have submitted myself to Allah as well as those who follow me. Meaning my followers also have submitted themselves to Him. Okay? You get what I'm saying? So that's important, because if you go to the next ayah, the next ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَكْفُرُونَ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَيَقْتُلُونَ النَّبِيِّينَ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ, then indeed those who disbelieve in the signs of Allah and kill the prophets without any right, وَيَقْتُلُونَ الَّذِينَ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْقِسْطِ, and they also will kill all those who command towards justice. Now this is the important part. Two people are mentioned. One are the prophets. Then who's mentioned after that? Those who command people towards justice. In other words, the followers, according to the exegesis, those people understood the Quran. These were the followers of the prophets. Because what is qist? Look again, this is how everything is really. Qist, if you go before, qist is to do what? Shahid Allahu annahu la ilaha illahu. To say that Allah is one, and Tawheed is qa'iman bil qist. What is qist? Is it just to like stand up for human rights? Because that's some modern scholars have tried to claim that, and that's way off. Because without Tawheed, okay, you cannot be, justice is not complete until you have first admitted the first and foremost fact of life, which is that what? God is one. La ilaha illahu. Okay, so who are the people that are standing up and calling people towards qist? And what is qist? It's all there. Qist is to say what? La ilaha illahu. There is nobody worthy of worship other than Allah. So who said that besides the prophets? The followers of the prophets. Well, yes, the scholar, obviously, yes, obviously, but that's all inclusive in what? Those وَمَنِ تَبَعَنِي, and those people who follow me. Do you see how it's all related? You see, there's nothing here is haphazard. It's all related to its, the subject matter is related, absolutely. So when you know that, how do you understand these ayat? That there are two groups here. There are the Anbiya, and there are the followers of the Anbiya. All of them do one and the same thing in terms of the message, which is that they call people towards the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Those who rejected Allah and the signs of Allah, they had killed both of them. Not just the Anbiya, but also what? Look yourself. الَّذِينَ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Okay? They also, because rejecting the followers is also a type of rejection of whom? The Prophet. Because they're saying the same things, that they're following ittiba', because that's what does the word ittiba' mean? To follow. But to follow truthfully, not just to say I believe and then do the opposite, but those who follow the Prophet in truth, meaning that they were truly the followers of the Prophet. All right? They didn't add or subtract. They just simply delivered the message that was given to them through the Prophet. If you reject them, then obviously what are you rejecting? The Prophet himself. And it's only logic. Rejection of the messenger is rejection of the message itself. If I say the messenger is a liar or hasn't delivered the message properly, then obviously what am I rejecting in essence? From a logical point of view. I'm rejecting the very message itself. It's not reliable. And hence that goes back to the madhab that we were just speaking about. Right? If you reject the messenger, in essence you're rejecting what? And here the Quran itself is telling us that that is not proper. Right? Because Allah Himself is saying, not just if it's not done out of purpose. It's done very purposely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet himself to say, Aslamtu wajhiya lillah wa man ittaba'an. I have submitted myself to Allah, as well as those people who have followed me. So then after that, if you want to have any more doubt, then after that, what does He say? That if they turn away, okay? Right. In aslamu, in other words, if they submit to what? If they submit and follow the same path as you, and also the path of those who follow you, that's why they're mentioned. Then if they do that, then they will be guided. But if they don't do that, in tawallaw, If they turn away and they don't want to accept, then فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ. Then your job is just to deliver the message. This is another funny thing, that the real purport of this, وَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ, that you just have the duty to deliver the message. Most of us take this ayah and a kind of like, what word should I use here? Like, don't worry about people. Just, you deliver the message, and that's your purpose, and you don't have to worry about whether you've delivered the message or not. So with the Prophet ﷺ, can we say that he didn't deliver the message? So is it like was Allah saying to the Prophet, you're not at fault? Do you understand if you take it this way, like, okay, it's not your fault, you didn't, you just have to deliver the message. Maybe you did or mess it up here and there somehow, you didn't deliver the message properly. No, that's not the point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, definitely he had delivered the message as he was supposed to. Okay, so what is the real purport of this? It's like other ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him, as an example, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَّمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا, or إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ لَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ, and other ayat. The basic meaning is that the Prophet ﷺ was so concerned about people, not for himself, but for their sake, that he had to be calmed down by Allah by saying that don't worry about them. You see the difference? Not deliver the message and don't worry about it. It was more like stop worrying about them. Okay? Stop concerning yourself with them. I have only sent you to deliver the message, not to run after them and chase them and make sure that they understand it. That's my issue. If I want to guide, I will guide. So it's showing the, can I say altruism here? Right? The literal concern of the Prophet ﷺ that he had for people. Right? That he had the responsibility of taking people to Jannah, so to speak. Quite literally. And so he was worried about people. So that in response to that, Allah would tell him, what? Like in this example. فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ. You deliver the message and stop worrying about them. Because وَاللَّهُ بَصِيرٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. Allah knows best. He sees all that these people do. Let him worry about who should be guided and who should not. So stop concerning yourself with people. Okay? So then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we already said, now here we're going to go further because there's some other important points. Okay, we'll skip the ayah number 22. Then you see ayah number 23. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا نَصِيبًا مِنَ الْكِتَابِ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى كِتَابِ اللَّهِ لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ يَتَوَلَّى فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ وَهُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. This refers to, obviously, in the time of the Prophet, some of the Yahud that were living in Medina, that do you not see these people whom have been given a portion of the book, meaning the Torah, obviously. Right? And when they're called to the book of Allah to judge between them, they turn away, some of them, فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ, meaning some of them turn away. Instead of accepting the message that you have given, which is the same, they turn away. That is because ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا, that is because they say, لَن تَمَسَّنَا النَّارُ إِلَّا أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ, that the fire will only touch us for a certain period of time. Even if we do go to hell, we're not going to be there forever. Some scholars say they refer to that period of time as 40 days. So, وَغَرَّهُمْ فِي دِينِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَفْتَرُونَ. So this religion that they have invented has deluded them. And the scholars of the past, again, were very insightful to the ideas of other people. And they said, this ayah, meaning this statement of the Yahud, لَن تَمَسَّنَا النَّارُ إِلَّا أَيَّامًا معدودات, and also نحن أبناء الله وأحباؤه, that we are the children of Allah and His favorites, that this is what their deen taught them. Is that true today too? That they're the chosen people? Is that their religion? We're the chosen ones, right? And Allah will never disgrace us or punish us. And no matter what a Jew does, I'm literally the same, even if they're an atheist. Like I have a Jewish friend who's atheist, right? In Jewish tradition, it doesn't matter. A Jew can always come back. A Jew will always, even as an atheist, be أَبْنَاءُ اللَّهِ وَأَحِبَّاؤُهُ. They will always be the chosen and the favorite people of Allah, no matter where they are, what they do, or how far they go. Okay, this meaning what they say, and when he says ma yaftarun, meaning is there any truth behind these statements? No, these are just things that they have invented from their own nafs, right? That whoever your parents were at the time of procreation is an immediate and absolute acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That no matter what happens after that, you've got it, right? God will never turn his back on you. Well, we'll get into that. Not quite. That's an invention. It means a lie. Yaftarun literally means an invented lie. Yaftarun, iftira, like from the verbal pattern that is used on as a deliberate lie. Okay, deliberate, not a mistake, because kadhib, literally, to lie also means to be mistaken. In Arabic, it also means to be mistaken, because if you make a mistake, is it true? It's a mistake, but it's not right. It's still what? In a sense, so kadhib is a little less than iftira. Iftira means what? A deliberate lie. You know well that what you're saying is complete nonsense, but you do it anyhow. Okay, ma yaftarun means literally these things that they claim that the fire will never touch them and that they are the favorites of Allah, and no matter where they go or what they do, Allah will always love them, is what? A deliberate lie. Deliberate falsification of their deen, or what was taught to them by the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay? Now, that should be understood to understand why, though, did they end up, and this is related to the khutbah, whoever's here Friday, about differences, right, and why people fight each other. Why did they end up killing their prophets, and why did they end up killing the true followers of the prophets? Is because these prophets would come, and every prophet that comes has a job to either reform the ummah. What do I mean by that? That the ummah has a book, they have a rasul, right? They have a prophet with law, in other words, in a book. The followers of that prophet somehow stray away from the teachings of that prophet. So a Nabi is sent to do what? Remind them, and also at times, this is the interesting thing, is even in this ummah, there has been hadith that suggests that the ulama of this ummah are like the Anbiya of Bani Israel, like the prophets of Bani Israel. Meaning that they remind them to follow the path of their Rasul and the book and the message that was given, but also if there was anything that needed to be described that was not described in that book, then they would do what? No, they would judge, they would make rulings like a mufti. You understand? Meaning they would say that, okay, in this time, in this place, life has changed, your condition has changed, the book is the same, the prophet is the same. So then we will give rulings accordingly. But the followers didn't like that. You understand? Not the followers, I should say. Some of these people didn't like it. بِمَا لَا تَهْوَى أَنفُسُهُمْ, right? Because they didn't want to hear it. In other words, they didn't like and appreciate this. So they did what? They killed them. Or another prophet would come, meaning at this time I'm using the word prophet to mean Rasul, which in this case, when the Rasul comes, it's even a bigger trial for them. Because one thing is to clarify, to say that you guys have gone off course, you're no longer following the true teachings, return to the true teachings, and also I can clarify some things that you may not understand right now, according to the Rasul that came before us, the book that was given before us. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing is to come with a whole different book, a whole set of different rules. This is why, by the way, the Jews don't believe nasikh and mansukh. Remember you talked about abrogation? They don't believe in it. They reject it even today. That God cannot change His commandments. The Torah is final. So what is a bigger test for them? When Isa alayhi salam came and said what? New book, new law. Absolutely not. I mean, you probably don't know the fiddler in the roof, but you know, tradition. You understand? Absolutely not. No way. What we have, what we've got, that is it. It's final. No change. You understand? So that change, did they appreciate it? Nope. So what did they do when someone came and said something different? Yeah. More than that, يقتلون, right? Get rid of them. Right? Rejection comes first, but that's why بغير حق. This is an emphasis, because the question comes up in many exegetes that how could you say that a prophet, why would you have to say that a prophet is killed without right? Can a prophet be killed with right? You understand? Like, do you have any right to kill a prophet? No, this is an emphasis, meaning that they knew very well that they were Anbiya and they had no business whatsoever touching them. So it wasn't just rejection. On top of it was what? They even went that far. Just get rid of them completely. Right? Get rid of them. We can't have them around. Okay?
As a community, they were that rigid.
Yes. And that's why the emphasis in this is that when you are that rigid, this is the result. And this is where these fights come up with. And the rigidness goes back to all of this is baghyan, jealousy. What's the jealousy? When we have this belief, we're the chosen people, what we've got is everything. If someone comes and changes it, then what happens? Your position changes, right? This is the test for all people in terms of religion, right? Baghyan, yani, out of your jealousy and love of position and power and whatever it is that you feel you have, I have this very special position, I'm the chosen people, or we're the chosen people, and all of a sudden someone comes along and tells us, no, that's not the case. Oh! Okay, that's it, get in. Because that challenges the position you put yourself in. Ma yaftarun, by lying and no doubt and making up things, but just like all these other false preachers and teachers and religious people, it's interesting to note that some ulama said that the real Imam Mahdi, which is another, it is true, we do believe in that, okay, that there are many hadith that purport that there's going to be that kind of figure coming in the last days. But the first people to fight him will be, they say, the umara and the ulama, the political leaders, the kings, the sultans, and the prime ministers, and the ulama, and some scholars as well. Why? Because they'll be doing the same thing. And that will challenge their position. Right? It'll take their power away. It'll take their position away. So the first thing they'll say is, no! Fight him! Get in! There's no way I'm giving up this. I'm the king.
So the scholars of Islam too?
Yeah, some scholars. Meaning scholars who will have this kind of position, right? Worldly position. They've gotten themselves into a position in life through their scholarship that because the Mahdi will do two things. He not only rules politically, because this is another because we haven't had what is called by the Prophet ﷺ al-Khulafa al-Rashidun. Okay? The first four khulafa. After that, the Prophet even predicted that after that we will have muluk, we will have kings. There's a difference. Because a king even if they're called even if we call it al-Khilafat al-Uthmaniyya, like the Ottoman Khilafah, they ruled politically, but they never had, even toward our tradition, they didn't have the right to make Sharia, or let's say be a mufti, or a qadi, or, you understand? A true khilafah, okay, meaning al-Khulafa al-Rashidun, means they have both. Did you see what I'm saying? They have the right of political law, and they also have the right of what? Religious law. Right? That hasn't happened since al-Khulafa al-Rashidun. But the Mahdi will do that. He'll bring that back. Which means that he will not just rule the people politically, he will also rule the people. Whatever fatwa he gives, after that point, there's no mufti. You understand? There's all of the muftis and scholars in the world with all their differences will have to say what? We have no opinion on the matter. The Mahdi is here. Whatever fatwa he gave, we have to all follow it. Now, isn't that a type of humility and taking away of your position that the prestige that you previously had? Is that not a test for a person's ego? Whatever followers I had, whatever fanfare I had, whatever position I had now, it's all out the window. The Mahdi is the one who gives the fatwa. So that's why some of them will fight him, because they won't want to relinquish or get rid of that position. This is the same thing that happened to the people before us. You see, it's just like history repeats itself. They didn't want the rabbis to, the same thing. They're there, they have the Torah. Isa alayhi salam comes along and says, no, there's some changes. And they go, whoa! we've been doing this for years. And it's quite lucrative for them too, right? That's why, you have to appreciate our imams. One of my teachers that was there in one of those interfaith, whatever you call it, right? And one of the rabbis, we were talking about the salaries of imams, and he says, "Well, we'll never worry about Muslims in America." You guys, it's like, there are rabbis that make 6-digit, salaries. They're taken care of. So they have their, we're good. This is good. What we've got right here. We don't need to change this. Because now all of a sudden it means, well, the rabbi's not important anymore. Isa is here. Right? He's bringing us a law. He's a prophet. We don't need to listen to you. Oh, since when? Right? Since when? That doesn't, you understand? You get the picture, right? This is what happens. Yeah.
So the Jewish and Christian tradition never had the concept of they recognized that there could be prophets that came afterwards. They just didn't recognize the ones that came.
Yes. And for the Christians, it's the same thing. Even though you may say, well, Christians, maybe they're different because they accepted Isa. Obviously, that's why they're Christian. But then who did they reject after him? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Because they thought that the next prophet would come from amongst them, not.
That's Bani Israel. Bani Israel, actually, their last straw, if you will, meaning their last chance to get on this boat, was actually Isa alayhi salam. By rejecting Isa alayhi salam, it was only inevitable that they were going to reject Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And this is why in the Quran you'll see that one of the things that Isa alayhi salam reminded them was what? وَمُبَشِّرًا بِرَسُولٍ, I am giving you good tidings of a prophet that will come after me. يَأْتِ مِن بَعْدِي. Ismuhu Ahmed. And he even named him, right?
Right, but that's the reason why they had actually moved and settled in the north of Makkah, right? Around that area in Yathrib, because they were expecting the arrival of the prophet.
Correct.
So,
Correct. Even in some biblical traditions, you'll still see that the torch, if you will, prophethood will be given, right, will come underneath their feet, meaning Bani Israel, will be given to their brothers, meaning someone other than them. So it's even there in biblical traditions, like it was going to leave the children of Israel. Okay? But again, why did they reject it? After knowing it. This is why all of this is related. After knowing, right? إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمِ. They know very well. Even to this day, if you're really looking, you can find it. It's there in their book. Why? بَغْيًا. Complete jealousy and hatred that you can't take this position from us. You can't take this status from us. You can't take this privileged, right, in their eyes, position that we don't need to do anything. Why? لَن تَمَسَّنَا النَّارُ إِلَّا أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ. Even if we go to hell, in other words, we don't have to act on any of this. We can even be, like I said, an atheist. They're Jewish, they'll be alright one day. Noam Chomsky is Jewish ethnically, he's an atheist. Even in their aqidah, he'll be alright all one day. He's part of the tribe. It doesn't matter if he believes in God or not, he'll be alright one day. He's part of the tribe. As long as he's part of the tribe, everyone's good. You see what I'm trying to say? That's what they've made up. Okay, to keep this kind of position, right? And they will not change that to this day. Will you see them changing that? The only ones who will change that, of course, is if Allah knows. Doesn't matter who you are. This is what I'll end with. Where you are, who you are, if Allah wants to guide you, Allah will guide you, Jewish or not. Correct? He will guide you. And when He guides you, you will be willing to rescind this so-called position. It is Allah's prerogative. If He wants to give prophethood to another people, who am I to argue? I will accept it. The humility. And this is why humility in reality is related to, as the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know the famous hadith where the man asked him about wearing good shoes and wearing nice clothes. You've heard this before, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna Allah jameel wa yuhibbul jamal." Allah Himself is beauty, and He loves beauty, right? But pride, which is what it was actually is to do what? Batrul nas wa ghamdul haqq, is to look down on people and cover the truth. You see how it's all related? This is true pride. that you look down on other people and you cover the truth. So how could God have the audacity to give prophethood to these people? We're the chosen people. We were the favorite son. Ishaq alayhi salam was the favorite. And then you will do what? You will cover the truth.
It's Iblis and Adam.
Exactly. You'll cover the truth. Even though you see all the signs of prophethood in them, and you see the choice of Allah in them, but you refuse because of, what's the real reason? Pride. I know it's a very simple example. I mean, I like using simple examples, but you know, when like two teams play, and one is like, you know, they're always the champions, and then they happen to lose. Rarely do they ever say, you played a good game. They got lucky. You understand? Like, we always win. Right? You understand? Like, that was just luck. Instead of saying, mashallah, you know, you guys did well, you played a good game, you deserve it. It's usually some kind of, well, that's because there's never doing what? Acknowledging that someone can do better than you. That's humility. You see, that's the whole point of the whole message. When you have humility, when the truth comes, you don't fight it. You accept it. And you say, okay, if this is whom Allah chose, if this is whom Allah has blessed, I've got no qualm with it. Okay? Whereas pride and proud people, what do? No way. Unacceptable. To the point that they are even willing to kill. To the point that they're even willing to do what? To kill. Rather get rid of the competition than have it, right? Better just get rid of them. If you know a new player has come that you're like, oh wow, okay, like this one really, no matter how much we think we're champions, that's real competition. What do? Time to get rid of it. Yeah, so we don't want to give up this position, right? So get rid of the competition. And so to the point that you're willing to kill, unfortunately. And this is the message here. But then, the beautiful part about this is all related to, again, one simple message, which is Tawheed. How so? Look at the end of these ayat and think about the meaning that is being given to us here. The famous, probably some of you have memorized this, قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ. And make dua, in other words, oh Allah, you are the one who is in absolute control of your dominion. Malik literally means king, but king means يَتَصَرَّفُ فِي مُلْكِهِ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ. You can do whatever you want with your property. This is the key word. كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ. So I have my property, this phone. Right now, I can add apps to it, take them out. Right? I can take care of it if I want to, and if it's my property, I can also do what? Throw it out the window if I so want to. There's so many options with one small object. So what is Allah trying to say? He owns everything. And since He is the Malik al-Mulk, He is the absolute owner of all things, that He does with it what He wants. If I'm the absolute controller, do I have to do it? Like if you suggest something to me, hey brother, you should put this app in your phone. Now if I'm the one in complete control, I have the option to do what? To take your advice or not. If I want it, I'll take it. If I don't want it, I don't have to take it. Right? So does Allah have to give according to people's whims and desires? Like we want to be the chosen people. Right? We want to be the special people. So you understand? Does Allah have to do what other people like? No. So He's reminding all of us. His is the dominion of all things. He does تُؤْتِ الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ. He will also give power and dominion مَنْ تَشَاءُ. Interesting thing here. Man is so general in Arabic. Believer, non-believer, black, white, Banu Israel, Jewish, not Jewish, Christian, Muslim, doesn't matter. Man tasha. Allah will give power to whomever He wants. It's not, in other words, it's not guaranteed to anyone. So you can claim, نحن أبناء Allah, we're the sons of Allah, we're the special people, Allah loves us. You can claim that. ما يفترون. You can say it. But the reality is Allah will give man tasha, whoever, which is, you people seen it. The Romans came and destroyed the entire temple, and right? And even before that, Bukhtanazir, Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians came. Were they believers? Were they the chosen people? And what did they do? They put you in bondage and slavery. So even though you claim to be so special, What did Allah show you? He gives power to whoever He wants. To people who are not related to Ibrahim alayhi salam in any way, the Babylonians, the Romans, right? Whoever Allah wants, He'll give them power. And you people saw this with your own two eyes. You understand what I'm saying? You saw it with your own two eyes. You're claiming you're so special, but Allah is showing you that He gives man tasha. Whoever Allah decides to give, He'll give to them. And the same way, He will also do what? وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ. He'll take it away from whoever He wants. وَتُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ. He will give honor to whomever He wants. Okay? Just like, again, the same lesson for them. Which, by the way, it's not just picking on them. It's also for us. Okay? We should also take these lessons to heart. Just like when you were in bondage in Egypt and Misr, and Allah Ta'ala gave you what? Izzah. So is it a lesson for you? That you could be slaves, and Allah will give you honor. وَتَذِلُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ. And at the same time you could be Fir'aun, and Allah will disgrace you. Okay? بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرِ. That is because all good is in the hand of Allah. Meaning He controls it alone. And He is not obliged to do anything for anyone. So therefore, if He gives to someone and takes from someone, should you argue with it?
It's a blessing.
Sorry, it's a blessing.
Nobody has that.
Nobody has that. And that's why in the end He says, Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. Indeed, Allah has the qudra, or the power to do anything. Ala kulli shay, meaning anything that is possible in existence, Allah can do it. That's why He mentions afterwards, the night and the day. It's not just like, when people try to use the Quran as like proof of science, okay? Like, it's the phenomenons of the world, the natural world. That's okay, but that's not the real meaning. What is the real meaning behind this? He can take something that seemingly would be the opposite and make it into that. In other words, He'll change the night from the day of the night. He'll change. What is the real meaning? This is the deeper meaning of it. In other words, as Hindi rahimahullah ta'ala said about this, He can take the children of prophets and make them into kuffar. And He can take the children of mushrikeen and make them into prophets. Right? You understand? He can take whatever He wants and change its reality completely. Because it is possible, just like you see in the natural world, that it is possible for daylight and night and things to change. So why is it not possible in the spiritual world? Is it possible? Of course it is. Even Christians like to brag about their religion when they say that Isa alayhi salam made Mary, not Maryam is my mother, right? That she was a prostitute. And then all of a sudden she became a saint. What is it a proof of? From the lowest of the low to the highest of the high. This is a proof of God, right? That He can take someone that you expect nothing from and then do what? Make them into something that you have never in your life imagined. Wow, that person? You understand? Those people, even the Romans said that when the Arabs were given the Risala. We knew there's a prophet coming. We never expected it to come from them. Of all people on earth, we would assume that they were the least equipped for this. So Allah does that on purpose to show us that, it's not about what you guys want, what you assume, or what you think. It's about what I want. Kayfa yasha. Right? How He anoints it. Because that's qudra. The whole word here, qudra, when you say Allah is qadir, He has the ability to do anything that's possible. So when you look at reality around you, the whole thing that we live in, this universe we live in, is about change, right? So you can't take these traditions, these jamud, right, to be written in stone all the time. Even Einstein said there's a theory of relativity, right? There's a time and place where these rules don't have to work. So even logically is what I'm trying to say. You understand? There's a time and place where Allah does, again, shape. Whatever is possible, Allah can do it. So He can take someone from the bottom, put them on the top, take someone from the top, put them on the bottom, as all this ayah says. So you guys, stop arguing with me. If I chose Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I chose his followers as well, وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنْ, those people who followed him, It's not for you to argue about, oh, this, that, the other thing, they're not this, they're not that. It is you for to just say, well, Samana, wa ta'na. That was Allah's choice, and we are humble enough to do what? To accept it. And say, okay, we will follow that path as well. We will give ourselves to the will of Allah and say that if this is what Allah wanted, if this is the Prophet that He has chosen, if these are the people He has chosen, we have no qualms with it. Because again, as He reminds us, وَتَرْزُقُ مَنْ تَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ, He will give His sustenance to whomever He wants. How many times do we complain about how certain people have money? And rightfully so. There's plenty of people who have money that don't even eat. Right? Like, wow, what did this person do? They inherited millions and billions of dollars and just they're like, you just look at them and say, wow, this person, you got it, right? This guy, no, I'm just kidding, stop there. Because why? Allah gives to whomever He wants. That's life. You have to, okay, mashallah. The same thing goes for things in terms of wealth and money and power and kingdoms. The same thing goes spiritually. Okay, same thing goes spiritually. If Allah wants, He will guide a people. If Allah wants, He will give to a people. You don't have to argue with that. And just as people get jealous for worldly things, believe it or not, people get jealous over spiritual things as well. Even more so. Because to a certain extent, again, like I said, religion can become much more powerful than worldly. People obviously give up their wealth and die for the sake of religion. Is that true or not? Muslim or not? People will give up their wealth and die for religion. So really, what's more powerful? Religion is a much more powerful tool of controlling people, than anything else. So people are jealous when it comes to the gifts of spirituality. And that's why people even tried to claim to be prophets after the Prophet ﷺ, right, actually before he passed even, because they thought it was like a nice little trick. Because the Prophet ﷺ did what no man had ever done before. وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ وَلَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. You brought their hearts together, meaning the Arabs. And if you spent the whole, look what Allah said, وَلَوْ أَلَّفْتَ مَا فِي, even if you spent everything in the world, look at today. I mean, I'm trying to pick on it, but look today. Just look at what's going on today. If you were to spend everything in this dunya to get these people together, it's not going to happen. Okay? You're not going to be able to get them to squash their differences and unite, which is also a sad message for us too. You're never going to be able to bring their hearts together unless and until they all have the dhikr of Allah. Because Allah says, Allah is the one who brought their hearts together. Okay? If you use the dunya, وَلَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا, if you spend everything in this world to bring these people together, that's a pretty strong statement. You can't buy them out. You can bring all the oil money. They're not going to shake hands and say, yeah, we're done, we squashed all of it. It's not going to happen. They don't care. All the money in the world. Have you ever met them, how stubborn some people are? They can care, that's all the money. No, I got a grudge. Or I don't like this one and this one, and it doesn't matter what money you give to me, you're not going to buy me out. My grudge is, you understand? That's there. And it's always going to be there. Have you met people like that before? You understand? Even if you try to hey, listen, let's stop this right now. Let me pay you a couple dollars. Just leave it alone. Who are you? No. This fight must go on. No matter what money you offer me. So there, what is Allah saying? What was the miracle? One of the miracles when the Prophet ﷺ brought the Arabs together. The Arabs themselves knew this. This is why Allah mentioned it. He brought their hearts together. What did they think? Wow, this man has pulled off the impossible. He united the Arabs. So maybe we should try it. You see what I'm trying to? Maybe we should try this trick, and that way, if that's what they thought it was. They thought Nabuwah was a literal what? Like a trick. There's a good way of bringing my people together. Even some Orientalists and people who try to criticize Islam will make the same claim that Muhammad ﷺ was just a good statesman who was able to bring the Arabs together. You've heard that before, right? He was just a real clever guy who was able to bring the Arabs together. And we'll see the opposite. Not to pick on our Arab brothers and sisters, we should love them for the sake of Allah, right? But look at today. You guys tried to bring them together every way you possibly could. Did it work? Did it work? Did it work out for you? It's not. You can't, if the Arabs themselves know, this is a sign from Allah That the Prophet ﷺ was able to take them and bring them together. It wasn't good statesmanship. There were many people before him that tried. There's people now who are trying. None of them ever succeeded. It was only because he was the messenger of Allah. Right? That was one of the miracles of the many miracles that Allah gave him, that he brought these Arabs together. And with these Arabs, who before could never live with each other, now Allah brought them to corners of the world that no one has even imagined up until that time, right? And brought Islam to people completely different from them. Is that not a sign from Allah? You understand Is that a sign from Allah? And to the point that even Allah mentions that as a sign, we'll leave it at this. In Surah Al-Jumu'ah, when Allah talks about the Arabs first, هو الذي بعث رسولا من أنفسهم, or هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا من أنفسهم. He talks about the Arabs, then he says وَالْآخِرِينَ. There's other people لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ, in which these Arabs have not met yet. Other people, in other words, this prophet will bring this message to, and that they will take this message and they will, in other words, all the things that are implied, learn this message and be able to understand this message, and thereafter also deliver it to other people. Who are these people? So in this ayah, Abu Hurairah anhu narrates that the Prophet ﷺ turned to Salman al-Farisi, who's Persian, and said it will be from his people. The Persians will be the ones who will learn the deen and take the deen. Even one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, even if it's in Thuraya, even at the Pallades, it's a what do you call it? It's a cluster, I guess. Anyhow, I'll learn the technical term later. I can't remember right now. But it's stars that are a cluster, I guess is what you call it. Is that true?
Galaxy?
No, not a galaxy. That's
Too big.
like the Big Dipper or whatever.
Constellation.
Thank you. MashaAllah. Constellation. Okay, that he's using it as a reference. The point is, why would he use this as a reference? There is a name for it obviously in English, like Big Dipper. I can't remember exactly which one it is. Pallades. That's what it is. Whatever that is. Anyone know what that is? Okay, well, look it up later on. Maybe you even see it in the sky. Why did the Prophet reference that though? What he's trying to say is that even if these people had to go to outer space for the sake of deen, for learning deen, these people will go that far. And the ajib thing is that this is the beauty of it, that this came true. All of the greatest accomplishments in terms of knowledge and religion were pretty much of people of Persian descent. Even Arabic grammar, As-Sibawayh was of Persian descent. Zamakhshari, the great grammarian and exegete of the Quran, and just Arabic language itself, Persian descent. All the great hadith scholars were, when I say Persian, we're talking about the greater, not just like in Iran, but we're talking about people who spoke Farsi as a language, or were descended somehow of the Persian family of language. Because Imam Bukhari and all those would be included, because they also spoke Farsi at a certain point in time. Even the Mughals, what language did they speak, technically? Farsi. Farsi was the official language of the Muslims in Hind in India until the modern age. Urdu was a very new language. It's a very new language. So what did the Prophet say about those people, the Persian-speaking people, if you will, the Persian people? That they will take the deen all the way up to Thuraya. That was a miracle also. Okay, a miracle also in itself. That the Prophet ﷺ predicted that and said that the Arabs had it, and then what? There will also be other people, وَآخِرِينَ, that will be the same as this first generation of Arabs who were united with the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, in other words, and learned the message and delivered the message. There will be other people who will do the same, and he predicted it, and they will be the Persian-speaking people, if you will, if you put it that way, or the Persians, right? And did that happen? Yeah, mashallah.
Would that just be related to religious knowledge or all sorts of knowledge, like
Obviously, this is strictly religious. Even though, obviously there is other, Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, what they call Averroes, right, in Western tradition, was the big influencer of the Renaissance, actually, technically speaking, his philosophy, even his idea of the atom and all this. But he was Arab though. He's from Spain. But that was, I mean, no doubt. But that's also related to Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina. That would not be technically considered religious knowledge per se, even though they were philosophers and they did talk about religion. But this does primarily refer to religious knowledge in terms of all of the things that are related to it. Like I said, the Arabic language, theology, Imam Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, obviously, huge name. Hujjatul Islam, they used to call him the proof of Islam. And he also was of Persian descent. We can go on the list, literally, to the point where it's almost embarrassing sometimes for Arabs, because even Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala has the most followers of any other fuqaha in the world, and he was of Persian descent. Interesting side note, just as I remember reading this, I thought it was kind of funny. They have a story about his grandfather is the one who accepted Islam. He came to see Ali radiallahu anhu, because Ali radiallahu anhu, in the end, he moved the seat of the Khilafah to Kufa, which is where Imam Abu Hanifa was from. So his grandfather brought Abu Hanifa to Ali radiallahu anhu for the, what's called, tahniq. The Prophet ﷺ used to chew a date and put it in the roof of the mouth of a newborn and give them something sweet. So he brought him for that and for dua. But in another narration, it said that he actually brought Ali a gift. And you know what that gift was? That's what made me laugh. Fallujah. Yeah, that funny drink with all the stuff in it. Faluda, what is it? Yeah. It is said in Arabic, Fallujah. I'm like, yo, really? SubhanAllah. I laughed. I said, even in those times that existed, that's where it came from. I see, okay. And probably it wasn't exactly the same as it is now, but he had that kind of, some special drink that they made at that time as well, the same name, and he brought it to Ali as a gift. There you go, you see? Tasty dog in their food, right? Even back then they knew what it is, and they gave the grandfather Abu Hanifa brought this to Ali. Okay, khair. So if there's any questions, inshallah, we can stop here and open up. I don't know if anyone is here for khutbah on Friday, but do you understand the connection here?
Yes, it was excellent.
Unfortunately, usually this is why people fight over religion, is because of ego. Unfortunately.
Yes. No.
Should be.